What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Journey Wheel, where we talk about how we use our minds and bodies to write the best life story possible. This is a product of Project Echelon. This is a story platform where we talk to veterans, people who are doing really great things to empower their lives through the art of physical endurance. And cycling is a huge part of that. And Adam Zimmerman is one of those men that we work with through Project Echelon. And he's been gracious enough to sit with us today to kind of talk through his story. So what I want to do is just start with the basics and then kick off to wherever we want to go and just have a real casual conversation about the journey. So introduce yourself, please, Adam. Kind of give us the rundown of, what made you maybe want to join the military, where you served, and then when you got out.
Absolutely. Hey, Eric, thanks for having me on the show. This is awesome. Great opportunity for sure. So, yeah, I signed up in high school. I knew it was going to be the infantry. I don't know if there was a specific reason. I was too young to probably even realize what the reason I started and joined up. But the only thing I can say is that there was something inside of me that didn't want to go through that rudimentary kind of program where you go to high school, you go to college, and you get a job. And that's always just been with me for as long as I can remember. I just have never wanted to do things in a way that was just structured for how you were supposed to live your life. And that was from a young age, whether it was who I hung out with, the activities I did. So signed up right out of high school to Fort Benning for infantry. And I was in I started out, not doing regular army actually. My parents are kind of convinced me like, hey, this is all pre 9/11, and they said, hey, why don't you just, why don't you do like the reserves or the National Guard and see if you like it and before like going totally gun ho. And of course I was 17, 18, totally resilient to them and just saying, no, 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 this isn't what I want. But, they won in the end. So I joined the Guard in New York City, where I grew up. And right away at Benning, infantry training camp, for boot camp, whatever. Man, it's been so long too. I'm like, going
Yeah.
back to it. I knew I wanted to do more. I was getting more motivated and more disciplined and getting in good shape. And I was like, yeah, I should have went regular army. I always, to me, that was always something that I wanted to do is just go regular army. So get out of Benning, doing my whole National Guard thing once a month and taking a few community college classes, and then 9/11 happens and my life totally changed. I was down at ground zero a few days after, and I worked on the pile, did security, all that fun stuff for about, felt like 4 or 5 months just straight. At the end of that, I did a little bit of security at the major threat level areas like Penn Station, Midtown Tunnel, Brooklyn Bridge, all those kind of things. And that hit me hard because, I'm from New York City. My whole family's from there. We're talking before the Great Depression. Everybody that I know, growing up is New York City, born and bred. So, that was a big turning point for me, and I felt like I wanted to do more. And so luckily I had a good CO who kind of got me in touch with doing the right paperwork and got me into the regular army. Did a kind of conditional thing where I had to get a slot to go back and get my airborne wings and stuff like that. And next thing I know, I'm in Bragg. I'm in the desert. I'm coming home. I'm in the desert and hit my head a bunch of times. And unfortunately, I had to get a medical release after that in the end of 2003, 2004. So that's
Mm,
kind of my history there.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, before we go after the military, you said a couple things that I think, are interesting to touch on. And I don't think that I've ever talked to anyone that served in the military and was from New York City and served in Ground Zero. So I'm really curious, has service been a big part of your life, or is that something that when intense action happen, like that's what you're going to default to is service?
I felt a great need to do something for myself, my community. And while there are what 5, 7 million people in New York City, to me, I there's still small pockets of community. I knew firefighters, I knew police officers, I knew somebody who worked in the towers who died. This hit me so hard. And at the time, you're not thinking clearly. I'm still a teenager in a sense, right? I'm 18 years old, 19 years old. Uh, but I knew I wanted to do more. So for me, it was fast track me, get me there. I want to do this, and that's kind of so. There was this need to serve, the need to help others in general, and I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I wanted to do something bigger than myself.
Yeah. Well, I relate to that. I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and that was my deciding factor between college and going to the military. I was kind of back and forth between those two, and that happened. And I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm very far removed from New York City, but it was still my country, and it was still this call to like, I want to do something about it because this is a personal attack. So for you, I can't imagine, how much more personal that had to have been. And I'm also curious, being from Wisconsin, not a diverse place at all. New York City, very diverse place, a lot of different cultures and heritages and ways of living. And the Army is what showed me that element of diversity and understanding people from different backgrounds. And I'm curious, what was your experience with growing up in New York City and then going to a regular Army unit? Did it feel pretty seamless, or was there any kind of shock to that transition?
It was visceral actually, because I was scared, I was nervous. It wasn't as laid back. There were a lot more responsibilities, a lot more on the table, a lot more structure, of course, because I'm not going back to my house afterwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah,
to a
yeah.
unit. So there was a transition there, but at the same time, like I said, I had a good CO, and he was a runner, and I was a runner in high school. So we kind of connected there. When I was down at working at Ground Zero, we actually were based at Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn. Ironically enough, right? Like where most of my family is from. Not Bay Ridge. Fort Hamilton is in Bay Ridge, right by the water and the Verrazano Bridge. But um, in that general area, so it's kind of ironic that I'd be stationed there. But we would do runs at night. When we get back, we'd work on 11 in the morning to 7 at night shift. And we'd get back and we would go for a run together and we would talk about things. And he actually was a lot older, and he went regular Army first and then came back to the Guard. So he had a different perspective and kind of paved the way for me to show me and understand what I was getting myself into. And that helped a lot.
That's awesome. Like having guides is so crucial no matter what you're doing. So it's cool to hear that part of your story because I didn't quite have that. Did you have that your whole time in the military till you got out, like that same CO, or did you ever get lost kind of in the shuffle where you didn't have that leadership?
Oh, I got lost in the shuffle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Partly my fault for being young and immature, and partly because we were not one of the first, but we were probably like the second wave that came through in deploying. And I think there was still not a good understanding of where we were going, what we were doing, and what our mission was. And it took a lot of time for them to figure out. And then when I came back the second time, things were a lot more structured, a lot more set out. There was always a plan, always knew what we were doing every day. But again, I don't think they knew what they were getting themselves into at times too. So it was hard at first, but then it got easier as I became more experienced in my
Mhm.
job.
Right. That makes sense. And it's kind of that I like to call it an identity crisis. When I deployed, I felt our unit was poorly trained for the job that we were going over to do. And so I feel like if I was confident in that, it would have been a lot easier to kind of not have to go through that jarring transitional phase because I knew my mission, I knew I was good at it, and I knew what I was there to do. But when you don't have that, it can be like the rug is just constantly pulled out from under you, you know?
Yeah, when I would say leadership wasn't there as much, but the guys in my unit were.
Mm,
They were squared away, and because they were squared, I'm just talking, same people, close in rank, and those are the people that I relied on, and they relied on me because again, who else are you going to look to, right? And because we were squared away together, we did well, I think, at that
mm.
point. But I'm not knocking everybody. Listen, you know, it was like I said, we were second wave. There still wasn't clear understanding of what we were doing at the time. So leadership is a little all over the place. So we had to get our shit together, as a unit.
Yeah, I mean, find an organization that has it all together. Like it's not exclusive to the military by any means. It's just sometimes the stuff you're dealing with is pretty intense in the military, so you want to have that squared away, but it doesn't mean it's happening. But when you get out of the military, I know you had been injured. TBI, I'm assuming, with head injuries and things. Is that what you were kind of really saddled with?
Yeah, took a couple hard hits to the head, unfortunately. One from a close IED, and then the other parachute accident.
Mm.
Some big dust storm came through, and the wind took us, dropped off my LZ, and man, hit my head hard. Knocked out. Don't remember anything except waking up in the hospital. So, luckily, I'm on a lot of medicine that helps with some of those side effects over the years. It's been a not to get into too much detail about the meds, but it's been a long journey to figure out what works and what doesn't with medicine in your body, right? Because
Mhm.
everybody's body is different. So getting the right medications lined up, has helped a lot over the years. So
All right, so I mean, getting things figured out, medications or not, like that's a huge part of leaving the military, even on good terms. So I'm curious, when you left the military, what was that experience like for you? Was there you said LZ landing zone? Did you miss the landing zone when you went into civilian world and kind of flounder a bit, like get knocked around, or did you hit the ground, go for a while, and then maybe got shaky, or what was that experience for you?
yeah, no, that's actually a great question. So you see a lot in the movies, I think, and with especially online about people coming home and they're lost right away. And I'm not saying that's not true, but for me, it was the opposite. I was more motivated than ever when I got out. I felt behind from all my friends who went to college right away, right? So I went and put every effort and everything I had into school. I went straight to college. I was taking 18, 25 credits a semester. I was running track and cross country. I didn't think about my past at the time, and I was just, on the straight path, and it was great for a while. Did my undergrad in upstate New York. I did grad school. My goal was to work in academia and teach in communications and political science. That was my passion with that. And then I met my wife, and things changed a little bit. And you'd say, oh, people would think, oh, you met your wife, that must have been amazing, and you grow closer. Yeah, of course. It was an amazing thing to meet the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But it also brings out your vulnerabilities, and it brings out who you are underneath sometimes. And it took many years to figure out. All of a sudden, everything started to come up, everything started to come out about who I was and what I had gone through. And we're talking, 5, 6, 7 years later, that I started having nightmares, cold sweats, hot sweats, all those physical symptoms that you can think of. And luckily I'm working in a lot of therapy now, and that's kind of helping. But yeah, things kind of didn't go in chronological order of how the normal PTSD military thing works.
Yeah, that's really powerful because that's a huge misnomer that it is a certain path that you take and it's going to happen this way. That's why it's hard to catch everyone when they get out. Is you almost have to have time to figure it out. Like for me, I jumped into drugs and alcohol and thought I was adjusting super well to civilian life, but that bit me in 3 years, 4 years later, where it was just the end of my ropes kind of a thing. But the one thing I'm curious from what you just said is your wife, I didn't catch, you were married before like therapy started and kind of everything came up, or are you guys dating? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't fill in all the blanks there. So um, I was back in New York, and she was living in Jersey at the time. And this is, oh man, 2009, 2010. This is right when the whole online dating thing is starting to become more socially acceptable. People are talking about it, and so we met online, met for drinks, and we just hit it off right away. And so we weren't married at the time. I was still in grad school, and she was doing she had a 9 to 5 day job, but she got an offer to move out to Colorado in 2010, and she said, "Do you want to come with me?" I said, "Sure." We weren't married at the time or anything like that. Came to Colorado, didn't have a job, didn't really have much focus because I left school. I finished school, but I wasn't starting my PhD. Didn't really have any focus of what I was going to do. So I started walking dogs, and I was coaching a few people for cycling on the side. And I know we'll get to the whole cycling and thing in a minute. Yeah, so that's usually, and then when the dust settled, I'd say after about a year being in Colorado, I had a lot more time on my hands. I didn't have a full time job. Didn't really have much focus. 'Cause, before that, I was, like I said, I was on that straight path. Boom, college work. Let's do this now. And that's when things started to come out. I tend to be loud on the outside, but I'm also I have this feeling inside of me that stays there and needs to come out, but I don't let it. And what I mean by that is I read a lot. And I started reading every single book about the war, every single book on 9/11, and just became obsessed. And I went down this deep, dark rabbit hole that I couldn't dig myself out of. Luckily, she was there to pull me out and say, "You need to get some help." So that's kind of how things matriculated.
So you're getting obsessed with this. Do you think that was your way of trying to cope with what was coming up? Was trying to get into some solid ground of something you knew? Because now, when you stop moving, that's when stuff comes up. Like you said, it happens to me too. And then you often will find a new addiction of some kind to try to suppress it or really feed it. So was that something that you felt you were doing? Was your way of dealing with it was almost going back to war?
Yeah, the whole sandbox thing, I kind of got, believe it or not, more than I did about 9/11. And the books on 9/11, and I'm not talking conspiracies and all, I'm just
Yeah,
talking,
yeah.
people's stories, right? Whether they were there, whether they weren't, just biographies, autobiographies, just everything I could do to just fill my head with information and try to gain an understanding of it. To answer your question, yeah, I was trying to cope with it, but my coping mechanism was a facade. It wasn't there. It was this. I kept filling this void, but I wasn't getting answers. And the fact is that you can't get answers from books. You can only get understandings of people's perspectives. And I was still lost. I still didn't know what to do. You know.
That's exactly right. That's community, I feel like, is you have to go out and engage with the world, and you can't just stay stuck in your head with head knowledge. Like, it has to be applied. So you're doing this work, you're in therapy now. At what point, and I mean, maybe you've been a lifelong cyclist, I don't know, but at what point did cycling become this vehicle to help you with what you were going through?
Yeah. So if we backtrack a little bit back to when I was in upstate, going to school up there, I excuse me. I was running track and cross country, but I had that obsessive, kind of personality when it comes to endurance sports. So I was overtraining all the time, getting injured. And my physical therapist at the college said, "Hey, why don't you pick up cycling as to cross train until you get better for running?" And I said, "Okay." Jumped in a few collegiate races with my team, and I was just hooked, man. I mean, just pushing this machine around and bursting out my legs. My lungs were felt like they were bleeding. It was amazing. Different than running. Running is like this animalistic kind of natural thing, where with cycling it's this man machine, and trying to integrate those together was more helped to feed my personality. And you were asking before, well, how did you cope with all this stuff? And a lot of people relate to endurance sports when it comes to coping. And road cycling was something that really helped me cope. Unfortunately, for many years it was coping in a negative way. And what I mean is that I was in this rage, trying to get these answers, trying to understand what I did. How can someone answer what it's like to take someone else's life? You don't know. I don't know. But we can only find those answers inside of us. And that's what I was trying to understand, what I had done. Was I a good person? What is a good person? But I was enraged from this. And road cycling, as you know, it has this stressful mentality to it, where you're pushing the pedals. You're in a group. You want to crush everybody. You want to outsprint everybody. And it was feeding that. It was feeding that. And it was helping me at the time. But later on, I realized that I needed something. I needed something different. And I'll start talking about my mountain biking a little too. But don't want to rant on for too long. Sorry,
No, you're doing
ranting on a little.
that's great because it makes me feel things that I haven't thought about in a while, and that's I've heard the comment a lot, and I've made the comment because I think I used it, and I'm curious your take. I did use cycling knowingly as a place to put my aggression, so I didn't take it and put it on my family. I had a wife and two children, and I didn't want them to feel that rage, but I had a lot. I had a lot in my heart that I just was like on fire, and I could go on a run and train unhealthy and go too hard and go anaerobic whenever I wanted to and feel like I had just been in a physical fight. But where was the line for you that you realized that you were crossing, where it was like, okay, this seemed healthy, but actually it's not?
Honestly, it's only been the last like 3 or 4 years that things have started to change. I got a mountain bike. I started getting closer to nature. Again, I've always been that kind of kid who plays in the dirt. Um, and when I found myself on the trails by myself, miles away, no service, up in the mountains of Colorado, I realized that I this is my true find like calling in terms of endurance sports. I want to be closer to nature. I want to be on the trails. I don't want to be around a big group of 100 people all the time. And ironically enough, it's so funny. I know we're going back and forth with timelines here. I wanted to go pro more than anything, man, with road cycling. I was like, I'm gonna go pro. I moved from a Cat 5 to a Cat 2 in 1 year. 1 year, man. You can look up my results. I went absolutely berserk. And then all of a sudden I get to the 1-2s and it's blown out the back every single race. DNF'd almost like a whole season, right? Just mad at myself, angry at everybody. But when I got to the trails, I was more relaxed. And I never got out of the 1-2s with road cycling. But when I moved to mountain bike, I found myself more relaxed. I found myself more in control of my thoughts, my emotions, whether it's on the bike or off the bike. And it transitioned to results. And a year and a half ago, I got my Pro XC license, which is to me the greatest accomplishment I've ever had on a bicycle. So
It's amazing. I love that. And so inside of you, there are two wolves. One rides a mountain bike, one rides a road bike. Who do you feed? Is that becoming the mountain bike in you now? Is like, because that's a huge, yin yang battle, whatever thing of the road versus the mountain. But it's really find your peace, find where you're happy, and that's now it's in the woods, is in the mountain bikes.
what's really funny is you keep going back to this word feeding, right? Like what
Hmm.
are we feeding? And it's funny enough because out of all the books that I've read over the years, there's one book that stays in my mind to this day, and I go back to it. Probably I still have it on my shelf, and I go back to it maybe a couple of times a year now because I've kind of have it memorized. It's called "Feeding Your Demons." And you know how we hear a lot about people like, oh, I got to crush my demons. I got to kill my demons inside of me. I got to get
Hmm.
rid of my demons. This woman who was trained by like a Buddhist um, place, I don't know the terminology. She had this new perspective of feeding your demon. Instead of trying to kill your demon, you feed it. So you go through this whole meditative state where you sit a chair in front of you in a quiet area and you talk to your demon. I know it sounds crazy. Just stick with me for a
I'm
second
liking
here.
it.
Yeah.
No, I like this.
Yeah, and you go through this whole step-by-step process of what does my demon need? What can I fill his belly with? And you start going through the things that are inside of your belly and giving them to him to feed, or her, or whatever, to feed that demon. And man, I do this practice at least once a month. I do it before races in the morning when I wake up. Before anything, before I eat, I'll go to the bathroom. I go downstairs in my basement and I do this. And it just puts me in a more calm meditative state, and I feel like, yeah, I'm not getting out and talking about all those things, those traumas that I've gone through, but I feel like, I don't know, I just feel at ease. I feel more relaxed, and man, it is incredible. It's incredible feeling.
It's a beautiful thing. And I do want to point out that we talk about vulnerability and authenticity and healing, but there's a place for it. The goal is not to tell every single person your traumas and everything that's happened to you in your life, but having trusted people like therapists or amazing friends. My service dog was one of those people for me that I went through and told those things to, because I didn't feel safe talking to a person. And it's good. It's important to get it out, right? But it's important to not just feel pulled to tell your story to anybody who asks for it. So I commend you for that. And I think that's a really wise decision that you've made. And I'm glad to know that you do have a place to put that. But what you're saying about this demon is powerful, because I was going through a process where it wasn't about slaying dragons, it was about learning to ride them. And it's a very similar process of like, if I go into the cave and I find the dragon that is destroying my life and is about to burn my village, I can realize that dragon is a powerful ally if I learn to tame it and use, like, my dad's anger was something that was in me and I was afraid of it. But what I realized is that to silence that dragon of power, I was sacrificing my voice. And I didn't want to have a voice because I was afraid it would become abusive and become the screaming man that I was afraid of as a child. But I realized if I use that dragon, that powerful voice, I can actually influence things in a positive way. I can bless my children. I can speak to veterans, and I can help them through things. And it's that ability to ride the dragon and feel the feelings that come up whenever you're connected to that energy that is very vital. Instead of trying to suppress it or badger it or shame it, we actually can ride it and we can feed it, like you're saying, and look at what happens. I see you as a very happy, peaceful man, and you'd probably be half of that if you didn't feed the demons, if instead you tried to ignore them and lock them in a closet. So I love this.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's a totally different. I never thought about that, like riding it instead of slaying it. And you're right though. It's about feeding that positive energy into something, and putting it towards something. And you're right. It's not just about the traumas, right? Like I feed my demons when I have an argument with my wife, when I'm having trouble with my kid, whether it's some finances that come up, anything, anything in life that we all deal with. And that's the way I do it, and you do it in a different way, and I think that's awesome. And I guess maybe to somebody out there listening, find your way too. Maybe try out one of ours, and then do a little bit of your own discovery, and you'd be amazed at the power of the mind and how much it can help your performance on the bike, and you as a good person in life, no matter what you did in the past.
Exactly. Find your way. Enactment, they call that in initiation. There's three phases, and the last one is enactment, where you try on different hats, you do different things. You ride road bike, you ride time trial, you go on the mountain bike, and then you find your path. Like you find what works for you, and you can't just guess it. You have to go out and do it. So you're part of Project Echelon. You're riding a mountain bike, which to anyone who doesn't know, we do have mountain bike kit. We do have many mountain bike riders. We're not just a cycling team. We're not just a roadie organization. So I want to hear more about Project Echelon and how that has helped you, if it has. I'm not putting words in your mouth, with your mountain biking path.
Yeah, so man, I can't believe it's been 13 years, 14 years. I've been racing some type of bicycle. Been on lots of different teams, elite teams, community teams, virtual teams, even. And it wasn't until I think last year I was speaking to Mallory, who was on my virtual team at the time, and she told me about this whole program. I didn't know. I didn't even know you guys existed at the time. And I thought, oh man, you mean a whole team of veterans who ride bikes? Well, that sounds cool. But it's much more than that. Like I'm barely scratching the surface here. Project Echelon is a community of like-minded people, and it's not just about being a veteran. It's about wanting to help others and wanting to connect with others. And a side part of that is that yeah, we were veterans. We're people who served, whether it was in any type of the military. And I think that's incredible. And every time that I put this kit on, I feel like I'm standing for something more than myself. I honestly mean that. I feel like I'm standing for a community of people who like endurance sports, who want to help others, and who believe that we can help each other through all of the crap that's going on in the world and that you're not alone. I've met some awesome people that I've talked to. I'm not going to name their names right now. It doesn't matter, but we have great conversations. A few of them I go for rides on locally. One guy we probably talk in length every single day on Instagram, just about life. And those conversations to me are like little golden nuggets, man. Because anytime I'm having some type of bad situation, I know I can count on one of my brothers or sisters. It's incredible. We have a great way to chat with people through social media, but we also do lots of different rides around the country. So no matter where you are, you can find somebody. I thought at the time, one of the last thing I want to say about this, I thought at the time, I was like, oh, I first heard about the elite team, the elite road team, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, okay, so they support veterans and they're an elite road team. That's great. But it's the elite road team is just one small aspect of this. There's so many people out there who just want to race their bikes and be a part of this. And I thought that was so cool, that it's not just about the elite riders, the fastest riders out there. It's about using cycling as a tool to connect us as a veteran community. And man, I'm not trying to sell it here. I'm really not. This is coming from the heart, man. I love everything about this. And if I can go on for just another minute here about something, this has stuck in my mind. My parents live in this neighborhood that backs the national forest, It is incredible. I drop my kid off for a couple hours and I can shred trails and not see a single soul, right? I'm about an hour and a half back, way back in the sticks, man. I mean, there's no service on my cell phone, right? And that's where I like to do a lot of my intervals because it's quiet. There's nobody else around. I do some hard intervals on this single track. And you pop out of this single track, there's this dirt fire road, and it is a nasty, nasty fire road. It's probably about 11%. I think it's 11% for about half a mile.
Mm.
So it's a great place to do those hard, like little, really short efforts. Anyway, long story short, there's this guy, this hiker out there. I haven't seen anybody in 2 hours. Okay, and he sees my kid, doesn't say anything to me, right? He's just wearing like a hiking, uniform, outfit. He's got a pack on. Didn't think anything of it. I do my first interval. He's on the hill. I come back down. He gets to the top of the hill. I come back up, gasping for air, take a quick minute rest. He obviously realizes I'm doing efforts on the hill. Next time I come back up, he's saluting me.
Mm.
And I go back down. Comes back up, salutes me again. It was this, I was like, dumbfounded. I was like, holy crap, this is freaking awesome. I'm connecting with this dude in the middle of nowhere out there because of the kit I'm wearing and what it brings to just other people and because of what it says. And that was just such a cool experience I wanted to share. So
That's really cool. I'm glad you shared that because as a co-founder of the organization, it's really great to know that when we sit in our basement, we come up with these ideas, we put up programming, we try to extend our reach, we train a pro cycling team to go out and advocate and to become on a national platform so that everyone can know about what we do. And if it's right for you, come join us. But to hear stories like that, where in 6 years, 7 years that we've been doing this, that, wasn't even on my radar of a possible story to ever hear. And that's one of the things I love about this arena is that it's not about, and what I mean by arena, I mean mountain biking and cycling. And it's the message that Eric Hill told me when I was starting in my first ever effort to try to pull myself out of depression with cycling was you have to ride loose. If I control the bike and I manhandle it, I'm probably going to crash. But if I ride loosen up and trust that the bike is going to stay up and I'm the one that's going to wreck it, I can do some great things with this machine. But if I go and I try to control an organization and create it and say, this is what I want it to be, and this is how I want to net my result in 10 years, I would never have heard that story in that mental process, but it absolutely fires me up. It's so cool. Like it's just, you can't plan for that stuff. You can't control that stuff. And it's the freedom for you to go do what you need to do and for me to do what I need to do, but we're still brothers because of this kit, because of this shared passion is an amazing experience. And I get to hear stories like that. Like that's such a thrill for me. So don't ever apologize for meandering thought and taking one more minute. I'm not, they're not, people aren't here to hear me. Like they've heard me enough. Like
gotcha.
I want to hear more from you,
All right, cool, man. Yeah, and we didn't say a word to each other the whole time. Just salute, smile, and after I was done, he went his way and I went mine, and that was it. And sometimes you don't need to say anything either, and that's just what's so cool about it. So cool about the experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, for anybody out there who's listening, who might be thinking about joining any team, and I did that post today on Instagram that really that hit home for me because when you put on your kit, yeah, you're a walking billboard, but what do you stand for? And I woke up thinking that to myself. I said, well, what do I stand for when I put this kit on? And I know that answer. I know that every single time. And so, that was a question that I kept asking myself over the years that I had trouble with on other teams. And that's one cool thing about being part of Project Echelon.
Yeah, that's a very intentional thing too, because when that wasn't originally going to be the thing, we were going to have two separate kits. And I was like, I don't want that because as a veteran, there's something about a uniform. And I know personally, and a lot of guys and girls that are, part of this team, it's not going to be possible for me to be an elite Cat 1 cyclist or, a pro of any kind where I would actually have sponsors paying me or giving me, a uniform that would actually have the Argon 18 on it. But I get that because I get to represent our professional team. And so as a soldier, there is an absolute joy, as weird as it sounds, to put on a uniform. Like I miss that because it does change you. It's like suiting up to go to war. And now we're riding a bike, And so I think that's an incredibly powerful point because that's what we did it for, was so that, and I thought maybe no one else will feel this way, but hearing people say that, I'm like, yes, like I'm not alone. I'm not weird. Like this is a big deal. And I want to ask you this. civilians are a part of this echelon. It's civilians supporting veterans, veterans supporting civilians. That's one of the elements of it. And whether you've had problems with relating to civilians or not, I think we all know veterans who have had that difficulty. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how do civilians support veterans, knowing that story about you guys just saw each other, said no words, there was a salute and a wave, and that was support. I'm like, what do civilians need to do to support veterans?
You know, it's a tough question because our initial natural human response is to give sympathy, show empathy towards people who've been through something like a war, um, or just served in general. And that's not always what we need. Sometimes we just want someone to talk to. Sometimes we just want to smile, and that guy knew exactly what I needed at that point. And I know I'm going back to that story again, but that's what it was. I didn't need to sit down and have a conversation. I didn't need to have a powwow. I just needed somebody to smile and understand. And sometimes the best is just nonverbal communication. Give a smile. Ask, hey, how you doing? Or like we come from New York, how you doing? But what can civilians do? Man, just be yourself. Be cool.
Mm,
Be original.
yes.
Don't be anything more than who you are. And because we're people too, and we might have worn a uniform, we might be wearing a uniform, but we're civilians in another sense.
Hmm.
We might have two sides to that, but there's shades of gray in between.
Beautiful. Authenticity, just be you, because we focus on saying the right thing and the wrong thing, and they're just, don't focus on the right thing. Just focus on your thing and your genuine curiosity or way to support. And that guy might never really say anything to anybody that, saluted you. And that's just his way of supporting. And that is meaningful, because when you show up authentically as you in whatever situation that is the most powerful thing you can do. And that story has so much gold. That's what I like to call, is you mine gold from these stories. Like, I don't care if it was a 5-minute experience. Like, there is, if you look at it, you can mine so much gold and use that as a message for 20 years from now. You can still tell that same story and it will still mean something. And that's why this is so powerful. That's why it's the journey well of this idea of connecting to those stories. That's what I love. That's what my bread and butter is. Like, let's talk about our stories. And like you said, not the book knowledge is good, but the ability to reflect on the metaphor and the meaning of life and its nuance is so powerful. And I think I want to know, is that something you've developed recently, or have you always had that insight where you can take a situation, a moment in time, and really look at it from different perspectives?
Man, there's that old saying, with age comes wisdom, right? And I think for a while, I was selfish about my feelings, and I was selfish about trying to figure things out. And then when I had a kid, when my kid was born, that changed everything again. That rewrote the script. That rewrote my script. I had a new mission in life. And it's an unbelievable feeling when you can watch a person grow up. And well, he's still only 2.5, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know.
And I'm anyone who doesn't know, I'm a full-time dad. I'm with him every single day of my life, full time, and I love it and I embrace it. And for me, that helps me, give me kind of a new beginning to who I want to be and my understanding of life. And I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm a much better person, I think, because of my son and because of my family, because of my wife. I have a different perspective. I don't burst out all the time with things, in terms of my emotions, and I try to keep them under control. So yeah, it's a tough question to ask, but I think that as we go through time, and we get older, we have more perspective on the understanding of what this life is, and what's important and what's not. And these days, I know what's important, and that's my family.
That's amazing. And I love it. And I'm curious. I'm a full-time dad too. I've got two
Nice,
daughters.
man.
Yeah, and
Awesome,
and my wife
awesome.
helped me through my stuff and chasing my passions. And now it's, I'm healthy enough that I can let her, I can empower her to, chase hers. And she's doing that. So it's been an honor to get to know my daughters in the way that I've gotten to. I'm very lucky. My wife was very supportive when I needed compassion. She gave me compassion, but it got to a point where I got healthy enough that she had to give tough love. And it comes to that point for, I think, a lot of people. And I'm curious, from your story, what was that support from your wife? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, like, I've been going on this positive path for a while and talking about all the good stuff, but listen, man, it's not all glitter and sparkles. Um like I said, I was down a deep dark rabbit hole. Yeah, it might have only been because of reading. It wasn't with drugs, it wasn't much with drinking, but it was inside my head. I was becoming lost inside my head. I didn't know who I was anymore. And if it wasn't for my wife, I probably wouldn't be here today. She's the one that pulled me out and looked me in the eyes, and she's one of the only people that can look me in the eyes and tell me that I need help. And that's kind of what set me down the path of getting help. Because I grew up in a very tough New York family. You don't share your feelings all the time. Everything's going to be okay. And sorry, mom, if you're listening, but that's how it is. Uh, so I'm not good at sharing my emotions. I don't have trouble with that. So it was she kind of yeah, she was the hand that I needed. And for many years she helped me when I wasn't working, when I didn't have a path in life, when I didn't know what I was doing. Sure, was I racing my bike all the time and having fun? Yeah, that's selfish crap, man. I wasn't there. I wasn't there emotionally, and she supported me through all of that. Even right when our kid was born, I was saying, "Oh, this was an amazing thing," right? But man, I went off the deep end, dude. I was again lost. What am I gonna do? I got this responsibility of this kid now. I'm gonna have to watch him all the time. And she was going through her own things, but she was still there to support me. And over the last couple of years, especially since Maddie's become now a little bit of an older toddler, I'm more stable. I'm more balanced. I've found a good round of medications that are working for me right now. And for anybody out there who's taking medications, like they don't last forever, and you got to keep changing them to see what works and what doesn't. And right now, things are stable and things are balanced in my life, and I'm in a good place because of her.
That's amazing to hear. The power of a support like that is incredible. That it's not a codependence. It's a challenge. It's a love, an extension of compassion, but also the push. And that closeness is really powerful when it comes to being able to say stuff like that. And like, you need help like that. People don't want to hear that. That's the last thing I want to hear. Like, don't tell me that I need help, because that makes me feel like I have a problem, and I don't want to think that I've ever hurt you. But that's very much part of the process of healing, is accepting that, well, I've done some things to hurt you. And, I don't want to accept that, but I do accept that, and I'm going to change. And there was another quote to bring dragons back into this that has been transformational for me. Was, I'm gonna butcher it, so don't Google it verbatim. it
No
was
problem, man.
it was basically, children don't need dragon stories to know that dragons exist. They already know it. Dragons exist. They need dragon stories to know that the dragon can be defeated. And I was given that nugget from therapy, because he said, children don't need stories about PTSD to know it's real. They know it's real. They need to PTSD story to know that daddy is going to be able to beat it. That he's doing things, she's doing things to overcome it. And so that's a beautiful example of a child being able to change you too, without even being able to say a word, is knowing that you have this other person that relies on you, that's going to be looking at you as a model. And I came from a Scandinavian family that we also didn't talk about our feelings, and it was stoicism, and that meant don't cry, and it's honorable. But now I want to give my children that voice, because I don't want them to lose theirs. And sorry, mom, if you're watching this as well. It was a great childhood. It was all good. I just saying that you have to see what you want to do differently for your children, and that's one of them, is giving that voice. And I think you will do that for your children by all of this work that you're doing. So I just want to commend you for that. And it's really inspiring to hear the positive and know that there's negative, but you speak about it so welcomingly, that I know this is going to help somebody. And that is a thrill, right? Like, the idea that this, just being yourself, is enough to help somebody.
Yeah, man, pay it forward. I can't tell you what's going to work for you out there, whoever's listening, but I can tell you what I've gone through and what works for me. And if you can take a little piece of that, take a little piece of what Eric's got and anybody else on these podcasts that you listen to, then maybe you've got, a winning ticket, right? And it's funny about dragons. One of my kids' favorite books is Dragons Love Tacos. I don't know if you ever heard of that book.
I want to
It's
read it.
amazing. Oh, get it from the library, man. Dragons Love Tacos. It
Tacos.
is the best book ever. Not going to give away the story, but it's one of his favorite books.
So go check that out. Yeah. Well, man, that's all I had for today for our conversation. And I want to, like I always do, I like to open up the floor in case you have anything that you want to talk about that you want to share.
Yeah, I guess in closing, I don't know if I'm ever going to get over what I went through, especially 9/11. Every single day of my life, I wake up and I know it's on my mind. It'll never ever leave me. Um, but it's learning to accept what I've gone through and have it be a chapter in my life. But it doesn't have to be who I am now. And that's the most important thing that I've learned about myself, is that who I was then does not mean that I have to be that person right now. And that's what I'm constantly evolving as a person. We always are, right? I'm learning new tricks, you're learning new things. It's the way that we work, right? It's the way that humans function. And I hope that anybody out there who's feeling lost can know that hey, um, I'm still lost out there sometimes too. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to admit it. I have better days, and lately I've had a lot of good days. But that doesn't mean that you're alone in this. It doesn't mean you're alone in this. And if you're just getting into cycling or endurance sports, more power to you. Just my after almost 15, 14 years of racing bikes, just have fun with it. Do what you love about it. Don't just do it because you're good at it or because someone else is telling you. Do what you love. Because yeah, I have a little regrets here and there about not mountain biking earlier and stuff like that. But one thing leads to another, and here I am. So yeah, appreciate talking to you. It's nice. I feel like I've gotten a little bit of off my chest. I haven't talked like this in a while either. So it's refreshing.
That's amazing. And it's vital. Like talking is so vital. And I love your story. I love the way you share it. And the message that you bring is so profound and needed, because I resonate with that too. That I got so mad because I felt like PTSD, no matter how much work I did, I still was held back in these certain areas. I'm like, why? It's been how many years? 15 years, and I still can't get over this. But the peaks aren't as tall, the valleys aren't as deep, and they certainly aren't as long. What once took me 3 months to get over takes me 3 hours. And one of the things that I'll close with, because it's what I've been dealing with this last year, was exactly what you said, is that it doesn't go away completely. I don't feel like you can. I mean, I still think about breakups in high school that were really hard because it was my first love. That doesn't go away, but I don't think about it all the time. Like, it doesn't come up all the time, but sometimes like, that sucked, or whatever. Like, it softens a bit, but it's a part of a foundational element of who you are. But it's not who you are. It's just one little speck. Like 3.5 years of my life can't represent the rest of the 80 that I have to spend after that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't do that. But it is important to realize that there is a path forward and that we aren't meant to feel this way all our lives. And that's not the goal. But powerful message. I'm glad you're part of our family, and continue talking, because when we speak, we remove the shame that surrounds our heart. When we speak in an empowering way, in a way that isn't raw and emotional, where we're bleeding all over everyone from our wounds and we're speaking from our scars, it's a place of empowerment, and it will help other people too. And it helps you at the same time. So it's this perfect medicine. So thank you for your time, Adam. That's going to do it for us. And until next time, journey well, my friends.